Nicsmas in July. Day 2. We're going to start in 1 minute. All right, 1 minute. If you're in here, go ahead and let me know that you can hear me. Sometimes I have some audio issues. And you can hit the thumbs up, little like button. That's really the only way people know we're here, because I don't really market this outside of private channels. Nicsmas in July. An extension of DALA, D-A-L-A, directions for acting like an adult or don't act like an asshole, whichever one you prefer. And an explanation as to why people don't like and rebel against the best leaders, creating a doom loop of supporting and voting for the worst. And what this does, because we're stuck in this loop and we're not clear on authority, we're not clear on leadership, and we're not clear on what I'm about to talk about today, is we victimize ourselves, and that makes us very dangerous to ourselves, to others, and most importantly, perhaps, to posterity. Okay? A little bit, this is a boring one today. This is stuff I don't like to talk about because it's a little bit less anthropological. It's a little bit more analytical definitions and stuff, but it is important so that day 3, tomorrow, makes sense. Okay, we'll start with the quote of the day. You know the theme. Chasing dopamine without effort. Seeking good news without work. And, of course, another way to say that is you are trying to get something that you want for free, for nothing. What you want in this case is dopamine. That's what we all want. And the world is trying to give it to you for free in exchange for your time, your attention, your productivity. So we can go all the way to 48 Laws of Power. We get Robert Greene, Despise the Free Lunch. That is a whole chapter. What is offered for free is dangerous. It usually involves either a trick or a hidden obligation. What has worth is worth paying for. By paying your own way, you stay clear of gratitude, guilt, and deceit. Now, of course, most people think in terms of money, but this is all exchanges. This is all exchanges. Pay for your dopamine with work, with effort. Okay? Sometimes you do pay for dopamine with money. You buy drugs. You go to you do distracting things. Go to movies. All that stuff. I like going to movies. It's great. But we must, for most of the dopamine, we must work for it. Okay? It's a great book, by the way. And again, I'm just showing you all the different ways that you can take a concept like this, and everybody automatically thinks money. Everybody automatically thinks money. Time is a currency that you can pay with. Don't give people, don't expect time for free. Identity is a currency. Money is a currency. Energy is a currency. Reputation is a currency. Okay? So on and so forth. So anytime you see something like this, I recommend you think about what else it means other than the obvious. And in this case, we can tie it right back into trying to get dopamine without effort. All right, 6-word updates. Let's look at the 6-word updates really quick. I always recommend that you do this. If you cannot do this for 3 days in a row, then yeah, I'm not surprised if you're struggling or things aren't going the way you want them to go. If they are, great. Then there's nobody can tell you to do anything different if what you're doing is working. However, the number of people, 300, 400, 500, that watch this thing all the way through and don't do a 6-word update, it tells me a lot about them. They may be watching for entertainment. You are getting dopamine for free. You are trying to get do some intellectual masturbation watching this thinking it's productive, but you're not doing the work. Dopamine without work. So you see how, as an example, you see how I can watch one thing and work for the outcome. You can watch another thing and do nothing. That doesn't, it's the consumer of the content. We keep blaming the content. Facebook is useless. Twitter is useless. It has no utility. That is not true. You do not know how to use it in a way that is productive. So it may not have utility to you. But if I'm watching a course or a class or I'm going through a program like this, and part of the work to get the outcome is to do a 6-word update, then I'm going to do it. Otherwise, I am seeking dopamine for free. I'm going I'm smarter now, walking away, not really doing any work to earn the accomplishment, the feeling of accomplishment that I'm walking away with. Now, I do recommend you read these as well. You don't have to, but you can see how other people are watching the same thing and getting slightly different outcomes. I create the news I seek. Beware the victim, stay far away, know your biases, change your behavior, so on and so forth. Wisdom comes from multiple perspectives. Here's 50 perspectives of the same thing that you watched yesterday. I would peruse it and see where these perspectives differ from yours and contemplate them. Open loops. Here's 50 new open loops for you, potential new open loops. Open loops are good. This is how we learn. Is it hard? Yes, it's hard to keep space, but I want you to work for your dopamine. Work for your good news. Okay, so go through that. And let's see if we can beat this. Let's see, I think there's 50 on this one. 50? Let's see if we get more than that today. Okay. Leadership versus authority. We touched on it yesterday. Leadership versus authority. This one is going to require you to think deeply. This is not about definitions and names. Remember, byproducts or consequences are a byproduct of behaviors, not of names. So we're going to use these names, we're going to use these labels in order to create and highlight distinction between these two concepts. But this is not a memorization thing. Don't just memorize it. That's exactly part of the problem. You'll see why. It's dogmatic to label it. We just need to understand that these are distinct things and there's overlap. Absolutely, there are authority figures that demonstrate good leadership, and there are leaders that have authority. There are also authorities that demonstrate no leadership at all, and there's people that have no official authority that demonstrate tremendous leadership. Okay, so there's just this gray area. It's a spectrum. It is not dogmatic. However, we kind of create an us versus them in order to create distinction between them conceptually. Okay, so creating lines and removing them is a very important skill, in my opinion. I'll break that down a little bit. Okay, so what it comes down to is adaptive problems versus technical problems. Leadership versus authority. What is leadership? What is authority? Who's a leader? Who's authority? Who should be doing what? It comes down to the type of problem. We only really look to leadership and victimize ourselves when there's a perceived problem. So this whole thing is about not victimizing ourselves, and you'll see more about that tomorrow, what it's really about. In order to do that, we have to understand leadership versus authority. In order to do that, we have to be able to identify adaptive problems versus technical problems. Technical problems are dogmatic by nature. Now, you can learn how to become an expert through a scientific process, but technical problems are dogmatic by nature. Adaptive problems are scientific by nature, meaning there's multiple outcomes and there's no right or wrong. There's no easy cure. There's no easy, simple handbook on how to communicate. For example, you have a son, loves his dog, the dog gets hit by a car. How do you break the news? That's an adaptive problem, right? Every child is going to take news differently. You might have to break it differently. Maybe you have to put the dog down in 6 months. Really depressing topic. But if you have to put the dog down in 6 months, depending on your parenting style, the lifestyle of the kid, how much they cared about the dog, you would communicate it differently in every circumstance. That's an adaptive problem. It depends on a lot of things, including the receptivity and preparedness of the other parties that you're communicating with. It's not right or wrong. Right? Hope that makes sense. So on many, many levels, if you were the vet, I'll give you one more example, then we'll keep going. If you were the veterinarian and you had to tell this family, hey, based on this diagnosis, you need to put the dog down. As a vet, you could have it could be a technical problem. I diagnosed it and I'm going to do it. So I will, you need to put the dog down and we will do it for you. The end. That's a technical problem. However, if the vet knows that you have kids and the kids are going to be devastated, they could turn it into an adaptive problem by saying, hey, look, here's a technical component. We got to put the dog down and we'll do it for you on this date. But if I may, can I recommend some ways to break the news to the kids? Can I give you some resources? Can I give you some things to think about? It is outside of their job description as an authority, but it is leadership. It is all the other things that come when the answers aren't obvious or after the obvious answer. Oh, that makes sense. Right? So a technical problem. A technical problem, it is easy for an expert. Very easy. It might be complicated for everybody else, but in your domain, it's very easy. There's a straightforward cause, effect, and solution. This could, or it can be, often will be, and should be delivered by an authority. So for an example, you step on a nail and you go to the doctor. It goes right through your foot. Okay, you stepped on a nail. There might be, they might need to do some disinfectant. Maybe you need stitches. I don't know. They'll tell you. They'll do it. But in this case, we're going to say now the problem is tetanus. You're going to get tetanus if you don't get a tetanus shot. So they give you a tetanus shot. And then you leave. And then it's done. It was diagnosed and solved by an authority. And that authority can be elected or credentialized. It can be a politician or a doctor. It can be, the mayor. It can be team captain. Or it could be a lawyer. Okay? But it is somebody's job on these black and white problems that understands to say, this is the problem, this shouldn't but deliver the solution. Okay? That's a technical problem. That's what experts tend to be very good at. Technical problems. And authorities are often asked to solve technical problems. We'll talk about why. An adaptive problem is more complicated. It may be straightforward in terms of cause, effect, and potential solution, but it cannot be delivered by the authority. And they can't just give you a tetanus shot and send you on your way. So if you are diagnosed with high cholesterol and they say that you have heart issues, that's a technical problem. It's not a technical solution. So it's a technical problem. Now the authority as a leader can tell you that your weight, your lifestyle, the way you treat yourself is likely causing the problem, but they cannot deliver the best solution. They can give you a piece of paper that says what the best solution would be, but they cannot eat, exercise, sleep for you, and make better decisions for you every day. The solution lies in adapting behavior. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense as what an adaptive problem is versus a technical problem. Technically, a technician can say, hey, that's broken, let me fix it, leave it with me, come back at 5 p.m., pick it up, it's done. An adaptive problem is not something that somebody else can flip a switch and fix. It requires oftentimes behavior modification, difficult conversations, time, right? If you have to, I'll get into this example later. Okay. Now, that's pretty straightforward. That's pretty black and white. Now I'm going to break down the layers of this because this will change your life if you let it, or if you choose to let this percolate, think about it. It'll change your life as a leader. It'll change your life as an authority. And it'll change your life as a follower, a fan, a client, a patient, or a constituent. Right? This is not the fun stuff that anybody wants to talk about, but this is hopefully a demonstration of leadership. I know this is not fun dopamine stuff. Okay, now here's the thing about an adaptive problem. An authority with poor leadership. So technical problems are straightforward. They get it right, they move on. If they get it wrong, it's malpractice, the end. Okay, but adaptive problem, an authority with poor leadership will say, hey, you have heart disease, or you're at high risk for heart disease, or you have heart disease, you're overweight, here's a pill, okay, bye. They will turn an adaptive problem into a technical one. And guess what? We want them to. We all go to the doctor hoping they'll give us a magic pill. What are we doing? We are being dogmatic, and we are chasing good news, and we are demanding a solution that does not require us making any changes. We want good news. Hey, you're better now without work. Change your behavior. Now, authority with good leadership will help you understand how to modify your own behavior, how to think about it. They might refer you out to some experts or some friends. They might sit down and talk or help you figure out how to talk to your spouse. They might talk to your spouse and tell them how to encourage you. It goes so far beyond the technical, how to think about it. This is what we do in the CCA at a much higher level. And this is what we do at the Wolf Den. It's not as deep of a level. Hey, look, this is why you were susceptible to this, you know? And of course, nobody wants to hear it. In crypto, if you tell people how they may have been responsible for their own the outcome, their own behavior was responsible for the outcome, they call you a scammer. So what happens? What happens? People that don't have the integrity or understanding turn into authorities with poor leadership. If they had good leadership before, as a user, as a client, as a constituent, or whatever, as a patient, we demand that you be a worse leader, because don't you dare tell me how I could have done something different and how I can adjust moving forward. Don't you dare. So we actually encourage poor leadership from authorities, because you want a pill. Dr. Lynn Wagner, MD, in the comments right here. Most patients want dopamine hits and quick fixes. So you got to recognize how you are part of the problem. I am part of the problem. We are part of the problem, not as the leaders, but as the on the other end of it. I'll just keep saying the word constituent, but I mean client, patient, follower, fan, believer, whatever. So when we run into adaptive problems, good leaders are often shunned and rebelled against, and poor leaders are encouraged. And good leaders often become poor leaders, because then they can treat it like a technical problem and they can wash their hands of it and say, I did my job, my patient's happy, okay, bye. But nothing gets better. Things do not get better. And that is the point of this all, in my opinion. That's why I show up, is to have these conversations with people that don't want to have them. I would not be surprised if the viewership of this Nicsmas, unlike others, just goes down every day, because you're not getting your dopamine hit. Totally get it. And I apologize for that, but not really. Okay, and then you have an adaptive and a technical problem. This is how most things work in the professional world. You're in a lot of pain and you go see a doctor. Doctor determines you got a kidney stone, or you have multiple kidney stones due to size or whatever reason. It's best to be removed surgically. I can do that for you. So they diagnose it and they remove the kidney stone. That is done. That is a technical problem. However, during the surgery, the doctor finds something concerning. I don't know, the marks on your stomach or whatever. And after some tests, it becomes clear to them and their expertise that you have stage 4 cancer. Now, there is a protocol for this. There's options. What do you do with stage 4 cancer? You got chemo and yada, yada, yada. Up to this, it's all been a technical problem via or through an authority, the doctor. Okay? And they could leave it here. They could leave it right here as a technical problem and say, okay, you have stage 4 cancer. Here's a treatment plan. And then the only thing they can do, if they continue to see it like a technical problem, is they could try harder and harder and harder and harder and harder to cure stage 4 cancer. And, I mean, there's not really anything they can do to try harder, but that's what a lot of people do. We're doing everything we can. We're doing everything we can. We're doing everything we can. We're trying to make you better. That's all a technical problem. From a leadership standpoint, they will say, okay, we're doing everything we can from a technical standpoint. How can we help these people or this family with the things that I cannot flip a switch or, put in an IV and fix for them? Right? How do we break this news? At what rate? How much can I push them before they become apathetic or pissed off or angry and are counterproductive? How can I help them get their affairs in order? Can I make some recommendations to some accountants or something to get their book straight? How do we communicate with the kids and the family? These are difficult things. And most people, believe it or not, don't want that, because as a patient or family of patient, when we turn and we go, don't talk to me about all this stuff, just fix my wife, fix my husband, we are now part of the problem. I know it's emotional, it's hard. We want good news, and we want good news without effort. And sometimes we're being too dogmatic about what that good news has to be. Because if something is borderline inevitable, if we know our wife is 99% likelihood going to pass away, then the good news is that the rest of our life is not in shambles on the other end of it. But that's not the good news that we want. We've already decided what is dogmatic thinking, only having one or two predetermined acceptable outcomes. We need to get into the scientific thinking and realize we got to control what we can control. And the good news on the other end might be 10 years from now that our kids have graduated college and we didn't blow up our lives by being dogmatic in this time of fear, scarcity, sadness. It's hard, I know. But by behaving in a way that turns leaders into technical authorities, we just perpetuate it. We make it worse for ourselves. We make it worse for the next patient. And guess who else we make it worse for? Posterity, our children and our grandchildren. So sometimes the good news isn't the good news that we want. And sometimes as a leader, the good news that you have to help people realize is not the good news that they want. The easy thing to do, the lazy thing to do, is to just stick in the technical and say, what, I'm doing everything I can to cure the cancer. I'm doing everything I can to cure the cancer. Neglecting all of the other things that you may know, if we can handle this now and modify some behavior and make some changes, we'll leave the rest of the family in a better place later on. That is a technical and an adaptive problem. Okay? So again, just practice seeing this from both sides, as a leader, as a patient, yada, yada, yada. Right? So an authority with poor leadership is going to double down on the technical solution. They're just going to focus on the disease or the super acute problem. Authority with poor leadership, for example, might decide that the fastest way to shut everybody up and keep their authority is to print more money. Just print more money. We don't need to talk to people about their spending and habits and work ethic. Nope, we'll just print more money. That's authority with poor leadership. Okay? Authority with good leadership will help you understand how to modify your own behavior or handle affairs that they cannot handle with you, so that there's a higher probability of good news later on. Because as scientific thinkers, we think in terms of risk and probability, not in absolutes. See how we contribute to this problem. And if you're sitting there going, my patients or my clients totally do this, well, before you go down that road, look in the mirror, make sure you are not perpetuating it. The coaches, in my experience, the coaches in particular, and the technicians that complain the most about their patients and clients make the worst patients and clients. So let's start with ourselves. Cool? All right. So here are the pitfalls with this whole thing, because there's layers and layers and layers, is humans have a hard time identifying what type of problem they're facing. We have a really hard time. Like, can't the president just do something? Or crypto? Can't the developer just do something? I'm sure if you look at traditional stock investing, or if you're a fan of Tesla, like, can't Elon just flip a switch? Like, no, probably not. But because you have a very hard time identifying, you might not even be aware that there were different types of problems, then you're asking for the wrong thing. You're asking for the wrong thing. And you are, because of the dogmatic thinking from day zero, remember the dogmatic thinking, you're asking for the wrong thing, and you've already predetermined acceptable outcomes. You are 100% going to get let down. You are setting yourself up for failure by not understanding the types of problems, consequently asking for the wrong type of solution, and being dogmatic about what that solution has to look like. You will never get the outcome you expect, and because you're not aware of any of this stuff, you can't reflect on it. The cycle continues. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse. Now, an authority will fight to maintain a position of authority. We know that. If you are a doctor and you like seeing patients and you have a lot of them, you are going to try to treat them in a way that you continue to keep them as patients. If you have been an elected official, you are going to behave in a way, at least you're going to announce publicly that you behave in a way that will keep your position of authority. And we know this. So if humans in general have a hard time identifying what problem they are facing, and they're going to ask the wrong kind of question or ask for the wrong solution, and they're going to be super dogmatic about potential solutions that they will accept, then in order to keep your authority, what must you do? You must forfeit good leadership in order to maintain your position of authority. Right? There's many parts to this. We always get mad at the authority figure, because why not point the fingers and blame somebody else? That is not the problem. It is a cycle. You know how authority got their position of authority? You gave it to them. A group of people gave it to them. Now, it might have been a board, law, medicine, things to be credentialed. But the authority is given by the people. It can be taken away by the people. It's really important to remember that. So, clients, patients, and constituents want good news without work. They want dopamine without effort. Without the ability to identify the type of problem, or even if we can identify the type of problem, but our need, our desire, our craving for dopamine overrides it, we will demand we will turn it into a technical problem and demand a technical solution, which is going to lead to dogmatic thinking. Give us the answer. It's only one of these two things. Nothing else is acceptable. Are you going to get rid of jobs, or are you going to give us all cancer? Remember yesterday? Well, the answer lies in the middle, but people don't know that. The only reason he was able to do that is because he had balls of steel. On every side, everybody wants to argue with this. So as a doctor, or as a hospital or a clinic, they might say, hey, look, just give the patient what he wants, or, he could sue us. And the patient is saying, just give me what I want because I fucking want it, or I'll sue you. It's very difficult to maintain good leadership, but that is not the fault of the authority. So every time I see people point fingers at authority, it implies to me that they don't fully comprehend what's going on. Does that mean authority figures are all good and ethical? No. But guess where they got their power? They got their power from your need for dopamine and consistency bias. Yeah. Weird, right? So, authority figures, consequently, as a response to the way that most people behave, will turn everything into a technical problem so they don't lose the business, the votes, or the self-image or identity as being a phenomenal technician. This is like, I'll give you an example. You might be incredible at running Facebook ads or any paid advertising. Somebody comes and say, I need to make more money, so you're running Facebook ads. Now, a leader might say, this is what we do. Whoa. Let's see if this is even the best route for you before you give me any money. Or maybe halfway through an engagement, it's like, I'm looking at this and I don't think this is a solution. An authority figure often will try to keep it as a technical problem. Return on ad spend. I can increase that. Because if they are preeminent, if they are leaders, they might lose the business, and they might also lose their self-identity as being the solution for everyone. So these are just the pitfalls that are worth considering. Okay. Now, authority. Authority is a title. It is a title or a position that is granted power by the people. Now, again, the people might be an institution. Lawyers, you pass the bar exam. They give you that title authority. Of course, if you don't deliver and you piss everybody off, you can lose that. If you get sued a bunch, you can lose that title. You can lose that authority. Same with doctors, right? Now, influencers, thought leaders, people like that, community leaders, 100% power granted by the people. The news, the media is uber powerful because you respond to it. That is the only reason why. It makes a lot of money and has a lot of influence and power because as long as they confirm the bias of their people, they continue to get advertising dollars. Yeah, hope that makes sense. So leadership is an understanding of adaptive problems. See the difference? Leadership is understanding, being able to recognize, diagnose, and navigate adaptive problems and focus on proper solutions, not the single solution, not binary or dogmatic solutions, but understand that this is not super clear and we need to find a real solution to this problem. We're not going to pick between everybody losing their jobs and a bunch of people getting cancer. That would be something an authority that assumes it's a technical problem would do. We are going to work together to figure out where the best solution lies, and we're going to have conversations, and you're not going to like it, but you're going to participate anyway because you want the power of free speech and you want to vote, and this is your life and you want it to be better. You have to participate. You have to show up, and we may have to modify some of your behaviors and we'll modify some of our behaviors. That's what leadership is. Yeah. Dr. Lynn Wagner in the comments says, I keep patients in my practice by giving them dopamine hits, but the hidden technique is that I use to keep them. Yep. That is actually one of the, and I'm not going to get into it here. We'll talk about it probably more in the CCA and stuff. That is one of the displays of leadership, is figuring out exactly like the minimum effective dose of dopamine, and then you can stretch their brain, make them uncomfortable, get them to modify their behavior a tiny bit, and then another dose. It's cognitive behavior therapy, essentially. That is a sign of leadership. It is strategically placing the dopamine. If you look at the history of the world, if you look at Lyndon Johnson's a good example. If you look at the Civil War, if you look at civil rights, this is actually baked in. Even if a president or a leader says, I need to sign this bill because it's the right thing to do, the great leaders don't do it right away. They have to step into it. Otherwise, they piss off the other half of the country, right? So this is done on a global scale. It's done on a local scale, and it can be done on an individual scale. Good leadership is understanding all of this and using it to help people modify their behavior over time so that the news gets better and better and better on average for everyone. Of course, I get that every individual just wants their news to be good all the time for them, because somehow we all have that little sociopath in us that thinks that everything should just be the way that we want it all the time because we're right and screw everybody else. But that's not leadership. Right? So authorities can practice leadership, but they often do not not because they are malicious or evil. They may become so, but that's not the reason that they do not practice leadership. They have constraints. Authorities have constraints. They have eyeballs on them. They have parties to appease. They have rules. They have regulations, a lot of reasons, and they have to get reelected every 4 years in some cases. Okay? So they are demanded and expected to deliver good news without any work on the person receiving the news. So before we get mad at authorities, let's make sure we are doing our own work. Okay? Leaders do not need authority to practice leadership, but their efforts may fall on deaf ears. That is true. That is true. However, you can learn these principles and lead yourself. You don't need an audience to be a leader. In fact, you shouldn't have an audience until you, in my opinion, until you would follow yourself. Randy Massengale, who teaches the CCA with us, his definition of leadership is, would you be a disciple of yourself? So number one thing is like, well, I can't be a leader. I don't have an audience. You don't need an audience. Can you identify your own adaptive problems and start working through them? And if you can, you will build an audience because you will be happy and people will gravitate towards it, and you'll be polarizing because you will challenge people, not to challenge people, not to be confrontational, but because you care enough to recognize an adaptive problem. All right? So step 1 is stop contributing to the problem. Stop contributing to the problem. Right? Take your foot off the brake. Don't push harder on the gas. Take your foot off the brake. So here are the things that are contributing to this crisis. Refusing to look at adaptive problems as being adaptive. The easiest way to summarize this is dogmatic thinking. An orientation toward being dogmatic. There's a right and a wrong. Fix this. I know 30 years of my behavior caused this, but fix it for me now, Mr. Authority or Mrs. Authority. Stop doing that. Be more scientific in your orientation, less dogmatic. People actually don't know when it's okay to look for a solution outside of binary or dogmatic terms. They don't know that it's okay to look outside of, my wife, and morbid examples here, but my wife has cancer, and all you know how to do is look for better cancer doctors, but it's an adaptive problem. There may be other things we need to look at. There may be contingencies and backup plans and a house to get in order and conversations to have and maybe just time to spend together. Okay, so sometimes we just don't know that it's okay to look for solutions outside of the obvious, outside of the technical, which is binary and dogmatic. They get lost in a technical bubble. Helpful versus right. That's why I brought up helpful versus right. They just start trying to be right about everything. Here's all the valid points. Well, if you're worried about making valid points, what you're not doing is being helpful in a way that modifies behavior or looks outside of a domain, because what is a valid point in one domain may not be a valid point in another. So if you're doing these things, you're contributing, and that's okay. We're human. We are all fallible. I am as fallible, probably more fallible than anybody else. That's why I have to think about these things. That's why I have to write about them and talk about them, because I am a broken adult, just like a bunch of others. Okay? And then treating authorities as if they should handle all problems as technical ones, as if they should be able to put it under a microscope 10 seconds later and diagnose and cure it. That is not what authorities do. They can, the technical part of them, but that is not. Authorities are traditionally, or in theory, authorities to display leadership, but what we ask of them makes it impossible to display leadership, so we cannot handle all problems as if there is an answer or an obvious one. Okay, so here's what we're going to do, because I'm going to bring this all home tomorrow. Journal or reflect on the problems you've come up against. Think about technical, adaptive, both. How could the person have communicated better, right? Effective communication is actually a part of an adaptive problem. So a technical problem would be like, yeah, you have cancer. Here's your options. You got 6 to 8 months to live. Good luck. It could be cold, it could be nice, but it wasn't thought. We didn't think, all right, given the situation, what is the best way to have this conversation? Who should be involved? Should we tell them over a series of steps, or should we just give it all to them? So think about any problem that you have solved. Really common one is people go, what? I gave them all the information. Who cares? That's not the problem. The technical aspect of the problem was easy. You're neglecting the adaptive problem, and you are hiding behind the technical problem to maintain your identity or to be smart. You're saying, what? You're abdicating yourself responsibility, but say, what? I gave them all the information. Well, did you communicate it? Did you understand it? Did you answer their question? Did you help them navigate how to read the information? What it might mean for them? What should they tell their kids? What should they tell their parents? Did you navigate all that? No, I gave them all the information. Well, then you're not a leader, my friend. You are a technician. And that's okay. But can't expect anything to get better if you think just solving the problem and ignoring the behavior or the context that created the problem, you cannot think you're doing the right thing. You're doing the thing that was asked of you, and that's okay. But don't lie to yourself and others about it is. So anytime you said, I gave the information, or somebody said that to you, think about those things. Think about the adaptive problems that you faced and try to treat like technical problems. An example. Well, should I run Facebook ads or not? Should I grow my business or not? Should I spend more time? Should I hire a nanny or should I hire an executive assistant? These are all binary questions. Binary, yes or no, this or that, implies there is a technically correct answer for everyone. However, one person might spend a lot of time with their kids and not get all their work done. Another person might get all their work done and want more time with their kids, which means one of them should hire a nanny instead of an assistant, and the other one should hire an assistant instead of a nanny. And if you hire a nanny, you might want to figure out how to talk to your wife about it or your husband about it so they understand the importance and why you're doing it and yada, yada, yada. We ask questions as if they are technical when they are indeed adaptive, assuming that we want our lives to get better, not to be correct or make the right decision on paper. Right? Valid versus useful. Technical versus helpful. So think about that. That's and drop some 6-word updates, of course. Now, next, tomorrow, I'm going to bring it home. Not going to do a ton of days. Typically, Nicsmas is 12 days. I have a lot of work to do. I have a lot of adaptive problems to solve, and that requires a lot of brain space, requires a lot of tact, requires a lot of if-thens. So we're going to wrap up most likely tomorrow. There might be a day 4, but I'm going to bring it home to the only logical solution. So what do we do with all this? Other than think about it and reflect on it. It's called double loop learning. I got that from Randy, which he got from teaching smart people how to learn. The solution is revealed tomorrow. Now, this is my opinion because this is not a technical problem. This is an adaptive problem. So I'm going to reveal the way that I communicate it is going to be what I believe, given the feedback I've seen, the 6-word updates, the people that I know are watching, and just the engagement. What I believe is the most effective way to communicate this to, a couple hundred people at once. I would communicate it to each of you differently if I was having a conversation with each of you. It's important to understand that this is not a dogmatic, this is the solution. It might be slightly different for each person. But this is how it works. Part of leadership, in my opinion, is recognizing, not saying the same thing all the time so that you're consistent or so that you're right. It's recognizing who you're talking to, how they're receiving it. You may plan on saying something and then decide to hold it back. You may plan on not saying something because they may not be prepared, and then recognize that their preparedness is higher than you expected and decide to say it anyway. This is leadership. Okay? It's not technical. It's not right, wrong. This is the way you do it. And I'm always practicing it because I drop the ball all the frickin' time. Right? Looking forward to 6-word updates. Let's see if we get more than we got 51 on this one now. Yeah, let's see if we get more than 51. Appreciate you all. If this is helpful, go ahead and share it. If not, if you don't want to share it,